we kept a interesting topic today. So welcome to Startup Change Leaders weekly meetup. So there's a lot of talk about ESG and what ESG is for. Of course, people talk about ESG's relevance for the bigger organization and bigger companies. But I think ESG is definitely going to be relevant for the startups as well, and how this ESG is going to be a game changer for getting good investors by the startups, and how the startups are going to gain from the ecosystem of ESG. That is what we will talk about today. And if you look at the overall business situation, ESG is a very important component of growth for the startup ecosystem. So today we will talk about this aspect. Now, we most of us know, but I thought it is important that we first understand what is ESG. It is environmental, social, and corporate governance, and it is also a business framework for considering environmental issues and social issues in the context of corporate governance. So some people ask, and some people are of the view that corporate governance is something which only big companies or big corporates should be worried about or should look at. But I personally feel that if you are not a good governed company, if your governance levels are not perfect, then you are having tough time in executing, and also the corporate governance is having those best practices, having those practices which are being followed by the companies which have grown over a period of time. And that is where I think the startup entrepreneur, because every startup has a goal of becoming big. So when you have a very clear vision that you need to be maybe listed on IPO down the line, so why not start those best practices when you are small, so that when you grow, you expand your horizon and start following those practices. And of course, they are designed to be embedded into an organizational strategy that considers the need and the ways in which to generate value for all the organizational stakeholders, such as employees, customers, suppliers, and financiers. So this is very critical and important that you as a startup entrepreneur, you have a very clear path for your employees, for your customers, for your suppliers and financiers. So this I think has to be taken care. And as a professional who's managing the startup, you need to be very clear about these goals, which are your ESG goals. Somebody has the mic open. Just a minute. All right. So the environmental factors, if we look at, they refer to companies' impact. So what is ESG, right? So ESG is. Can you mute yourself, please? Yeah. So the E part is the environment, and environmental factors refer to companies' impact on the environment, including greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, water usage, packaging, waste management, material sourcing, and biodiversity. So all these ingredients are, sometimes we feel that how are these going to be my impact areas? See, we all are, when we start as a small entrepreneur, but at the end of the day, all the businesses, they have an impact on the environment, they have an impact on the overall energy situation, and also they have an effect, for you know of course, Aditya says ESG is for sustainability. But, of course, the sustainability is a very, very important aspect. And I think, Aditya, I'll take your inputs also, how you are managing this part or this aspect in your startup journey, and how you perceive it is important for you. Uh, and material sourcing also is a very critical component, which we all understand. And the biodiversity, environmental sustainability, the climate risk management are the very hot topics, and they are becoming increasingly important for a wide range of stakeholders, including investors, employees, customers, and suppliers. So we all need to gear ourselves up for this, very important thing. And S, of course, is representing the social factors. Uh, you know, it is basically, we look at how the company treats the employees and operates in the society. When I used to work for Panasonic, we used to have a very important principle, and that was, that said, contribution to society. Now, contribution to society is something which many people may not be talking about in the initial phase of their journey. But let me tell you, if you are very clear from the day one that you have to contribute back to the society, and make the society gain from whatever business you are doing, that will actually be a game changer for you guys. And that, of course, includes the employee well-being, labor standards, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is called DEI. And of course, the pay equity, human rights, community relations, workplace safety, supply chain management, and other human capital and social justice issues. These are all covered by the S, which denotes in the ESG, right? So it is not only sustainability; it is basically the entire social factors which affect the organization and affect the business. G, of course, is governance, which includes the company's internal structures, policies, and processes, because every company works on a governance framework. So how this framework is going to be useful for the company, and also it emphasizes on risk management, business ethics, compliance processes, executive compensation, anti-bribery and anti-corruption efforts, and supply chain management. So G is basically includes company's corporate governance, meaning board of directors or equivalent governing bodies, and how are these going to make an impact on the business of the company. That, of course, we'll talk about it today. And let us deliberate as to how these factors are going to be critical and important for the organization, and how we are going to move forward. Now, the pillars of ESG, of course, as we can see, we just discussed, is environmental, governance, and social aspects. And of course, you know, the environmental aspect out of these three aspects is the biggest one. We need to have a very clear, strategy around the environmental aspects, and also, the how we are going to have a sustainable business model where we don't have too much of carbon emission. We are more efficient on the energy aspect of it. We are more efficient on the usage of water, and how the environmental management systems are going to be working in sync with the requirements of the ESG framework. I think this is what every startup need to understand, and we as a startup founders, because at the end of the day, when your business grows, I have seen sometimes things go beyond control. If your expansion is not moving in a linear progression, and you are expanding suddenly, I have seen certain startups, they grow exponentially once they launch their business model, and sometimes that growth leads to more confusion than solving the problems, because what happens is your systems are not in place, your background work you have not done, and suddenly this expansion leads to a situation where you are your processes are not prepared for that kind of scale. So and also the when you become too big, sometime bringing that discipline or bringing that scale becomes very difficult. So you need to actually focus on the processes in the initial stage itself of your business, so that when you are actually expanding, you can actually utilize your all these climate strategies, water efficiency, energy efficiency, etc., in a very systematic way. And of course, the social impact also is about how you are going to have that equal opportunity, how you are going to have a freedom for of association, how you are going to manage your health and safety, and your human rights and customer and product responsibility management is a very important aspect. And of course, the child labor, this is again a very important subject, because sometimes when we are in the initial phases of our business, we tend to be very price sensitive, and we don't want to spend too much money, and we end up compromising on certain basic traits of the business. That, I think, should be avoided. We must make sure that we have most of the requirements of ESG in place, and there has to be a very clear vision on how we are going to move forward on all this health and safety and human rights and other important aspects of social governance. And the governance itself, is a very heavyweight word, and we know that the business ethics, the compliance, the board independence, because my experience is that when we are very closely held organization, sometimes the business decisions are not taken the way they should be. No, so we don't have those kind of checks and balances where somebody external is looking into our business and giving us suggestions. You know, that is a very, very important aspect, because when we are managing our business, sometimes we think whatever we are doing is right. But the third party angle, or a board governance, actually brings in a lot of value add, because that board member has their own they have their own expertise, and they are independent. So when they are looking at your business, they are having a very 360-degree view, and they may offer, or they may suggest few things which are entirely out of the world, or they are going to suggest you certain areas of improvement which you would have never thought of. So it is always better to have the board independence. It is always better to have those independent board members to be in place, take their suggestions, take their inputs in your business development, and also take a very holistic view of your business model. And of course, you must be very clear about the executive compensations, and of course give your shareholders that kind of democracy where they can participate and suggest you improvements in the business model. So that's the basic governance aspect, and of course the business ethics and compliance is something where we all need to be very careful about. So what are the ESG disclosures? We all must understand the Indian regulatory space. Of course, Companies Act introduced one ESG disclosure requirement for companies as per Section 134M, which mandates companies to include a report by their board of directors on conservation of energy, along with annual financial statements. So, and this has been there for a very long time. So, energy, how the energy efficiency is being achieved, how it is being focused, that is the basic requirement as per the Companies Act for very, very long time now. And most of the companies, they are reporting, but my experience so far is that they are just reporting. They don't have too much of focus on this area, and I have seen that most of these the people who are working in this space, they are not that much skillfully targeting this area of energy efficiency, because but I think that is the key. That is the one aspect which all of us, we need to be very focused on from the day one, that how we achieve this energy efficiency. And also the companies are mandated to include disclosures on opportunities, threats, risks, and concerns as a part of their annual report under Regulation 34(3) of the SEBI listing obligation and disclosure rules. So, this is something we all should be aware of. So, the SEBI regulations for listed companies, they talk about these opportunities, threats, risk, and concerns in the annual report. So, when we, as a startup, when we are planning our longer journey, we always have a pressure that, okay, future, at a future date, you must come out with an IPO. So once you come up with the IPO, you have to follow the SEBI LODR guidelines. So better be prepared from the day one. How we need to enhance our situation in this area. And also, a startup ecosystem is formed by people. So, startup in their various stages and various types, whether you are working with a physical or a virtual office, you interact as a system to create the, uh, you know, to create and scale new startup companies. So, of course, these organizations can be further divided into categories such as universities, funding organization, support organization like incubator, of course, accelerator, co-working spaces, research organizations like legal, financial, and services organizations, and of course, large corporations are there. So, the basically, all these areas we need to be very focused, and of course, the uh, startup ecosystem should from the day one try to gear according to the ESG requirements. And of course, as a startup, you are dealing with all these service providers who are managing your legal services, who are managing your financial services, and you are also having these, incubators and accelerators working with you. And of course, many of the startups use co-working spaces for their growth. So we all need to, work on this area. And of course, local governments and government organizations such as commerce, industry, economic development departments, they also play an important role in the startup ecosystem. So, the different organizations focus on specific parts of the ecosystem and functions, and startups at their specific development stages. So, we have every startup has to go through this journey of dealing with these you know the areas where we need to uh, deal with these people. So we if you look at the overall situation, of course, the startup is dealing with a whole lot of people, and at every stage there is a requirement to follow the ESG guidelines, and you need to be very geared up to so that when it comes that these becomes mandatory for you, so you are already having this in your ethos and the system, and you don't have to struggle really for so if you look at the drivers of startup ecosystem, we have the corporate connects and government support. So we have to deal with the investors. We have to deal with the deal with the various agencies. For example, Facebook is having a tie-up with Startup India, and they are giving cash grants of $50,000 each for top 5 selected startups. Microsoft Venture Accelerator program in India has picked up 16 startups, so they are also showing their keen interest on investing in the startup ecosystem. And of course, Government of India also has many schemes which are giving grants to the startup. They are giving soft loans also up to 50 lakh rupees to startup without any collateral. So that's another area where the startups are getting support. And of course, the Government of India is also working with disruptive innovators across the value chain, and they are using these innovations to improve public service delivery. They are also having a department of with various ministries. This is an example I picked up from an animal husbandry or dairy. They have Startup India to award in 5 categories, 10 lakh each. So each ministry is now in a very focused way, investing in this ecosystem where they are garnering more startups to work in this area, and they are giving them grants, they are giving them prizes, they are having contests where startups can participate in the competition, and at the end of the day, those startups have to establish and about their business model. And once the judges who are managing that competition, they understand, what is your project, they may give a grant to that particular startup. So also SIDBI has a lot of schemes which provide assistance to existing small and medium businesses, and in over 20 states in the country, we have now startup policies. So state ecosystem is also supporting startups to they are encouraging them. So there is there are two kinds of ecosystems which are running parallelly. One, of course, is the innovation ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. Innovation, of course, via big companies in public sector, and there's a lot of research which is going on, a lot of funding sources, and of course, innovation by startups and customers. But in the startup ecosystem, it's mainly driven by innovation by startups, and they are open to collaborative and external sources. So and they expand their business. So we are already the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. Of course, we have a huge chunk of women entrepreneurs also now, up from 10 to 11% the previous 2 years. It's now almost 14%. And these startups have been able to create 40,000 new jobs. That is also one way we are contributing in the ESG environment. So, in the startup ecosystem, 1.6 to 1.7 lakh total jobs have been generated. So, that is itself a very in Bangalore, if you see, we have, Bangalore is now world's 20 leading startup cities of the world. So that's the kind of, so it's becoming a hub for the startup ecosystem. So Ajish, you must be, smiling on this slide. So basically, we have a lot of action going on in particular, there are so many such cities which are emerging, which have become, kind of a, ecosystem development is there in those cities for startups. And that is where I think most of the investor community and the people who want to work in this area, they are doing this activity in a very focused way. And it is also one of the first 5 fastest growing startup cities. So what are the benefits of ESG for startups? So one is it attracts investors. Uh, it gives you a leg up in the competition, because when investors are looking at your company, they are very attracted towards your company, because you are already following those ESG norms. So that there are particular chunk of investors who are actually very focused on investing in companies which are following ESG norms. So if your startup is, for example, in a category which is, say in EV category, or in a category where you are helping in the sustainability. So that those kind of there are specific funds who are actually encouraging investment in those startups which are following those ESG norms, and of course it helps to build trust with the stakeholders, and also the the other important aspect is, of course, the just a minute. So the trust with the stakeholders, and of course it boosts the employee retention, and also improves the reputation of the startup. So I think in all, the ESG, having a ESG framework around you is very good for the startup ecosystem. And if you as a startup go to investor and you say that you are already following those ESG norms, and you are contributing to the environmental sustainability, that itself becomes a very big plus with the investor community, and you tend to attract better investments by virtue of that. And of course, your employee retention also goes up, because the employees can also see value in this, and of course so how you integrate ESG into your startup. Identify the relevant ESG factors for your startup and the industry, because every industry or every startup area may be having a different set of ESG factors, but you need to study and identify those factors. Create an ESG task force, which is very important within your organization. If you can assign this work to someone who can actually work on in a very focused way on the ESG factors, and also develop the ESG reporting strategy, because if you are as a startup itself reporting on the energy efficiency, you are reporting on how you are conserving the water consumption, how you are taking care of your employees, how you are becoming socially relevant. So all those factors actually add on to the reputation of your startup, and it leads to a lot of positive brownie points, and of course the you need to develop ESG throughout your startup investment and governance documents, whenever you are presenting to the investors, whenever you are presenting to the people who are looking at your company, or even your recruitment strategies. You can have ESG in as an ingredient in your ecosystem, and that will give you extra image building is there, and you can actually showcase what you are as a company. So I think that is very important. And So before concluding, I think let me halt here for some questions. And Aditya, I would like to hear your opinion on ESG and how you think ESG can help your startup.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for having me, Mr. Bajaj. As I am also looking at ESG as an afterthought today, but I think it's very important because, as we have got close to a lot of these investors, a lot of the investors today tell you that a lot of the money coming today from family offices are coming with a sense of responsibility. So either you will have a family office which says that, this is the mandate, how we want it invested, but, it should have a DEI angle, it should have an ESG angle. So it's very important for startup innovators and startup entrepreneurs to have that built into their business and have it with a genuine sense. So, for example, we do digital fashion. Someone else gave it a very different angle, saying that, we allow young consumers to put digital clothing onto themselves, and that prevents the physical purchase, and that prevents this overconsumption that is leading to fast fashion today. And today we know fast fashion is one of the biggest contributors of environmental problem. So, this is the angle in which every entrepreneur should be thinking. And in terms of the future, I totally agree that, just like how we have grown to accept a tax as a part, like today, a good entrepreneur will not spend the profits away because he will put the money aside to pay the tax, which may be due at a later time in the year. Similarly, every good entrepreneur should be putting aside some amount towards CSR and ESG, because one is anytime it comes across as an afterthought. For example, like you mentioned, if you're looking at strategic alignment with a big brand, or you're looking at something like an IPO, if it comes across as an afterthought, it can be easily smelt out. For example, I know a very, very big contract manufacturer in fashion in India, and they had everything right. They called the movie studios to make the videos on how their employees are so happy and their employees are not using any toxic materials and all that. And then the chairman of that big group from Europe had come and visited the CEO's office here, and then he found that, he said that, downstairs where your workers are, you're not using any air conditioning, you're using water coolers to, because it's environmentally friendly. But the CEO's office has used all spray paint, which is environmentally unfriendly, and you've got for glossy materials, and you've gone for fully air conditioned. That means that there is a disconnect somewhere, which means that you are saying something else in your communication, but doing something else. So it's important
Yeah,
that entrepreneurs need to build that into their, sensibilities, that it should not come as an afterthought. Because today, if I'm a small startup today with less than 1 crore turnover, and tomorrow, if I have to align with a big startup, with a big corporation, and I have reached a point of say 40 crore or 50 crore turnover, and then at that point in time I try to build this in as a layer on top, it'll easily be smelt out, because so I would say, build it in with small initiatives, like, put aside money, put aside small money, even if it's few thousands per month. Do small initiatives, even if it's just planting a tree or just doing a talk with your employees, or being a part of a social meetup which has an ESG flavor to it. And what we have seen today with Gen Z is this whole cancel culture, that because everyone has got stocks available on apps like Zerodha and all, the minute someone feels that your brand does not echo the right sentiment for environment and all, or environment or sustainability or even fairness or inclusion, they quickly go on to these social media campaigns saying, let's cancel this startup, or let's cancel this
right, right.
stock. And there will be a social media campaign unnecessarily against you. And today, if you see, most of the big corporate houses, including Ambani's, they are now talking about bringing in green hydrogen with the angle of becoming a net carbon neutral company by 2030, which is surprising. Being a petrochemical company whose money has come from petrochemicals, they are talking about going totally carbon neutral 2030, which means that next generation is thinking about this and is willing to cancel brands who are not willing to think this way. So I think it's so important for startups where you have that vision beyond 5 years to start thinking in this direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you because you have to start at a stage where you can do it in a very controlled fashion. And you gave a very right example that organization may be talking about ESG, but all the offices are not following those basic norms. So, and it may be very difficult for them to change at a later stage. So, it is very, very important that you actually bring into the culture of the organization this ESG aspect uh, right in the beginning, so that when you grow, when you when you have these things becoming mandatory for you, so you are prepared. And as I mentioned, and you also agreed, that the investors these days are looking at these ESG norms in a very subtle way. They are actually very sensitive about it, because I remember that when I was in Panasonic, we used to have vendor audit, and we used to see that our vendors are also ESG compliant or not. So many times when your business is going to be with these large corporations or large companies who follow the ESG guidelines, so they have this inbuilt uh, in their system to make sure that their vendors also follow those guidelines. So if you are if you have to become a supplier to all these big companies, or you have to deal with such big companies, you need to have all these norms in place. So I think that is very, very critical. uh, Ajish, you have any question? Ajish? Ajish, you can hear us? Okay, we move forward. I think we have Ajish maybe uh, just join back. Now, if we look at these, so to just wrap it up and look at this, ESG as an important part of sustainable business model. It is not that it's the only thing you need to consider. You also need to make sure that your business is profitable and you are providing value to your customers. Because if you are not providing value to your customer, then at the end of the day, you are not offering what you need to look at from that perspective. And also how you integrate ESG into your business model, uh, because only then you will be in a strong position to attract attention of purpose driven consumer. As Aditya just mentioned, the Gen Z these days is looking into such companies, and if they decide and they go to the social media and kind of say that, oh, let's not invest in this company, or let's withdraw our money from this company, so that may become a problem for that company. And sometime investors, they are also very particular. They decide to withdraw their investment from the company. So you had it. And of course, to attract attention of purpose driven consumers, employees, and investors, it can only be a good thing for you and your business in the long run to follow the ESG norms. So Ajish, you are back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
power
yeah.
issue.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
So, any
yeah.
questions from your side?
Yeah. Like, see, for initially for a startup to follow all this ESG, it will cost little. It will be costing little money, right? Yeah. thoughts on it?
So see the ESG, for example, if you have to follow energy efficiency norms, I don't think it costs too much. In fact, it is saving money as well, right? If you are, for example, instead of using the normal electricity bulbs and all, you are using, say, a little energy efficient lighting system, for example, or you are using energy efficient water management. So that's saving money also for you, right? You are using maybe solar energy to some extent, and so the benefits, of course, this is where I think we have to break that myth that following ESG is very expensive. It may or may not be true all the time. Yes, to some extent, the costing may be a little more than the other means of. But at the end of the day, you are actually saving money. You are actually the goodwill you are generating from it. Suppose you get better investors who are ready to invest in your company just because you are following ESG norms. So there is a hidden benefit of it, right? So you can you are making actually a very good money out of this activity. So yes, little bit expensive maybe to begin with, but in the long run, it is going to give you much more benefits. Aditya, your take on this question, I think you can throw some light on it.
Yeah, I feel that ESG is very expensive when it causes change. So, when you talk about a big company like Exxon, and Exxon will say that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got some interruption. When you talk about a big company like Exxon, when they want to do something across 50 offices or 100 countries, it's very expensive to do because that whole initiative takes, full organization, and then they have to have meetings and all. But for a small company to adopt ESG, it's actually relatively cheap. And we have to build that mental muscle, start to appreciate what are the things we're already doing. Like what you said, if we have come into a good co-working space, that is also ESG, because you are kind of sharing those resources with other startups and you're not spending that money. See, think about two situations. Suppose you had 20 startups in 20 offices next to each other, and there were a lot of resources which you were overemploying. So by sharing that and going to a community or a collective kind of approach, you are also participating in ESG. Many of these co-working spaces have a green approach, so you can adopt that as a part of your ESG strategy. So more than greenwashing, it's also important to understand what is it that as a new player in 2020, 2021, you're already adopting, which was better than what previous companies are carrying on as legacy, and that should be part of your communication somewhere. And also, we should also start to think in that direction. So, like, for example, now that after looking at my competition, I've started to realize it's important for me to communicate to apparel brands that going digital in samples is not just saving the cost and the environmental impact of creating those samples, it's also saving the environmental impact of shipping those samples back and forth. That is also, today, one of the biggest factors of environmental impact more than the fashion industry is also the airline industry. And today, everyone, when they're talking about shipping and courier, no one is using, ground freight or train. Most people are using airlines. So, if you're able to cut down airline emissions, you're able to cut down, it's important to build that into your communication. So what you're already doing, capture that. What is it you're doing in terms of a shared model, wherever you're trying to innovate to save money? Try to repurpose that more as a saving of money to an ESG impact. And that will also help you thinking in terms of an ESG muscle, because every time you're making a new purchase, like for example, if you're buying a new AC and you see that a Panasonic AC, which has some environmental benefit, is for 55,000, and a another AC, say X brand, is 52,000, then you may spend the 3,000 extra because it helps you align yourself better with that vision. So, these small incremental, changes will not add up to a huge amount, but at least it will help you to start thinking within the ESG framework at an early stage in life as you're starting a startup.
Absolutely, absolutely. I fully agree. And another thing which I mentioned, that all these big companies, sometimes they have, for their vendors also, they want them to be ESG compliant. So if you have to do big businesses and deal with all these big corporations, you need to be prepared and compliant with these regulations. I think that's another angle to it. So Ajish, I think if you look at all these angles and factors, it may not be that expensive, and of course, you will get an edge over the others who are not following ESG. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Thank you, Aditya ji. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Any other question, Ajish, you have?
No.
Okay.
Rajiv.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for joining in. Although this topic is maybe or many startups may not be very clear about what are the benefits of ESG. So I thought let us discuss this so that the concept of ESG and the impact it can have on your startup can be understood well by the startup entrepreneurs. So thanks a lot. We'll continue our quest for sharing the knowledge next week, 11:30 a.m. And also we are talking to a few people in US for running a series on, some of the leadership things, which a very excellent speaker is there who might collaborate with us at Startup Change Leaders. So I'll keep you posted on that, and let us expand our community. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.